I think it was one of the first ones. So yeah, it sounds like a great idea, and it fits. I think it fits perfectly.
Okay. Well, Mackenzie put together some documentation. I put it into more of a little bit of a PowerPoint format. So if you guys are ready, we'll jump into that.
All right.
Here we go. Here it is. Okay. Ugly Zoom windows out of the way. So I can see it. Okay. Hopefully you guys are seeing my black and white screen on the Meteor Scatter QSO party discussion.
Yep.
Yes.
So a couple of things today. We'll talk about the origin of the idea since Mackenzie's here. And what some of the practical considerations are so far as dates, which bands, modes, and so on and so forth. We did have some comments from the HamSCIence community to my post over the weekend, I think it was. And then one of the things I'm curious about is how much data we need to kind of sort of make it scientifically relevant and that sort of, and is there room on the HamSCIence calendar to promote, support, and execute? Probably actually more than one event because meteor showers happen a few times during the year, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's see. Come on, go. Had this problem this morning. Doesn't want to move. There we go. Anyhow, so Mackenzie, this was your overview. Do you want to read it or where you came up with this idea or?
Sure, I can read it. Let me fix my screen real quickly. Okay. So it says, an on-the-air event using the amateur HF bands is proposed to evaluate meteor scatter at frequencies below 30 megahertz. A competition format is suggested in order to collect a dense data set across a wide region that can be evaluated for future use of amateur radio to study HF meteor scatter propagation.
So I think one of the keys there, it's well written, is the frequencies below 30 megahertz. We can talk about that a little bit. We got a lot of feedback that meteor scatter is very common at 52 megahertz, the 6-meter band. A lot of people have small Yagis and 100-watt amplifiers or 100-watt radios. They can kind of point in the direction of the meteor shower and then listen to these signals reflect off the meteor pings. So we'll have to think about if we want to limit ourselves to 30 megahertz and below, which is probably only 10 meters. I don't know that there's a whole lot of meteor scatter activity on the other bands. Does anyone have any comments on that?
How's our I rarely look at the Whisper and PSK reporter spots above 30 megahertz. So how is the observing infrastructure for that?
Now there are definitely a few PSK reporters and skimmers and stuff on 6 meters, but there's not enough transmission. The band, at least when I was trying it a few months back, the band wasn't open enough to see much data.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what this QSO party will do is help to generate the transmissions.
Yeah,
So,
the problem with things like Whisper is the length of the transmission is too long for meteor scatter.
What about if we used FT4 and FT8?
That's shorter. It might work, but the what's it, MS-144?
Yes.
There is that format that is designed to be fast enough to catch meteor scatter. And I believe we can use that format on any band. It's designed for 2 meters clearly, but can be used on 6 and presumably 10.
Yeah, David's right about that. The MSK-144 is interesting because the transmissions themselves are only like 72 milliseconds long. Because you want to hit a meteor ping and get reflected back and receive it. Now it repeats those 72 millisecond transmissions over and over again for a long time period of like 15 seconds. Because you may not get a meteor ping on your first 72 millisecond try. So that mode is pretty good. The thing that concerns me about FT4 and FT8 is there's so much activity on the bands already. I'm not sure how you would differentiate QSOs that may be made by a meteor scatter if it's possible versus all the other folks that are just on FT4 and 8 every day as a matter of their normal operating.
that's absolutely true.
Right. Would it be
Now,
possible to do this on
Well,
20, 15, and 10?
What if
Do you
we
think-
did it? What if we made it only MSK 144?
That'll
Um,
narrow it down.
Yeah, I think we talked a little
Yeah.
bit before everybody got on. I mean, part of the opportunity, I'll say that in quotes, is that, I don't know how many hams use it, but it's a good opportunity for us to educate people, and actually maybe create some demand for, for the mode around it. So, I mean, it'd be a little bit more work on our part, but I think there may be some value in terms of using that. So,
So I mean, so right now, so MSK 144 is specifically designed to help with meteor scatter contacts, right?
yep.
And not too many people are using it right now.
Correct.
Right,
It's not, obviously it's not a common mode. So,
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's kind of a filter right there. So if we know people are participating,
Yep.
like if they're, I think that might be kind of nice.
Yeah, see, that's what the FT8 looks like today for 10 meters for the last 24 hours. There's a heck of a lot of signals. If I pick something odd like MSK 144,
oh, okay.
well, yeah, see, that's why if
Yeah.
we use that, I think they would stand out, as
Yep.
Nathaniel said.
And Mackenzie, when did you say the meteor scatter periods are?
It would, this one would occur in August. We would be shooting for August because the Perseids meteor shower is one of the most popular ones and it's one of the most visible ones. So it would make more people kind of excited to do this one.
Yeah.
gives us enough time, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you can do two of them. You can do the August one. We can have the December one too.
Yep.
And it's nice to have more than one campaign,
Right.
kind of like we had with the eclipses.
Particularly if we could do some reporting, some early reporting out of August. I don't know what the what would be, but that might get other people, enthusiastic about participating also in December and just, raise the overall amount of data collection.
Do we
So
know?
we really don't think, sorry, go ahead, Nathaniel.
Do we have some? And do we have any idea of like observations of how well the meteor scatter has worked in the past? Like we have all these anecdotal reports, but has there been any quantified effort of amateurs working meteor scatter?
There's a lot. It's not a problem. This is-
One point to note, I just brought up WSJT-X, and it does not cover bands below 50 megahertz, below 6 meters.
you
Why would
have-
that be? Because in the
10
past, there were bandwidth limitations, but those are gone.
Well, that may be what it is it's, MSK 144 would be a high bandwidth transmission and may not be allowed on the lower band.
It
We
is
need to
now.
check that.
It's within the
Oh.
2.8 kilohertz bandwidth. I had a couple of questions that came into my email that way, and I looked at the rules, the regs, and the technical specs in that mode. It fits within the sideband envelope, so we're good.
I think Bruce has his hand up.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I muted?
We can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Yeah, I do MS 144 quite a bit on 6 meters, pretty much every time there's a meteor shower. But for example, I was on there listening this morning, and there were some people in the Northeast that were working on contacts this morning. So you can do it almost anytime. It is true that WSJTX doesn't show a frequency below 30. However, all you need to do is add it in. And I've been making some comments in the chat. I mean, this has been tried before. There's some links in there related to the WSJTX groups IO. And typically they would use 28145. And it's just the signal, while it's a complex signal over 15 seconds repeating, is really just confined. It's an upper sideband type signal within a 3 kilohertz bandwidth. So it's just, food for thought there. I don't see any reason in the world why we couldn't plan and pull off a good set of experiments. There'll be plenty of people willing to do it. So
Bruce, do you think 10 meters would be a good candidate, or 6 is more common? Should we offer them maybe 2 options, either 10 or 6 meters, or try to funnel everybody onto one band?
Well, we certainly could do that. Now, anytime there's any meteor activity, or even almost any day, there will be a lot of activity already on 6 meters. What some people will do is pick some alternative frequencies. There actually are several different alternatives other than 50.260 in order to to offset and try to get some people on a special frequency. That's certainly possible as well. But from an experimental standpoint, I think trying to do 10 with enough people working on it is a great idea. And if it works out, that's great. If you're just trying to get more people involved in MSK 144, then certainly 6 meters is the place to go. And I mean, it's not a scarce thing. There's a lot of activity. And websites like PinJockey are specifically set up for people to make contact and to plan contacts for MSK 144.
Now, 10 meters, if it is a usable band, there are a couple of considerations. One is there are a lot more people who are going to have a 10-meter antenna than a 6-meter. And the other is that I presume text can operate digital on 10 meters. Is that true?
I believe that's true. I believe techs are typically doing FT8 type work on 10 meters.
Right.
It's been a long time since I was never a tech, but it's been a long time since I worried about that kind of thing. But I can certainly, I'll take an action to check on that just to confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's not a problem. They have to be in that 28 to 28.3 megahertz. They're limited to that, but that's where most of the action is anyways.
Yeah, that would be helpful if we could confirm that maybe for next week, Bruce. Thanks. Are we narrowing down what the scope might be yet? Or are we still open to doing a couple different bands and whatnot? Because I'm hoping we get enough concentration of data that Gareth and his team will have something to work with. If we have 5 people participate making 20 QSOs, it's probably hard to do a lot of science out of that.
So one thing we tried to do with science proposals is we try to develop science questions, and we write the proposal around the question. And so we try to structure the experiment so that it can answer the question. So an example science question might be how large is the region of the ionosphere that is affected by these by this meteor scatter. And then and if that's your question, you might try to design the contest or the operating event to get as many different people from a geographically spread region as possible, so that you could identify the boundaries of where the meteor scatter is present and where it's not, and you're trying to answer that question. So if we had a different science question, like how quickly does how short in time is the meteor scatter event, it might be less important to be like having geographical spread, but it might be more important to have people making continuous QSOs and be able to see when it starts and when it stops. So I think if we have some idea of what the science questions or the research questions are that we're asking, that will help us to narrow down what we're going to do, how we're going to structure this event. And, we it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, what comes first. Do you do the science questions first and then you do the technique? They always say, oh, you're supposed to let the science questions drive what your methodology is and not the other way around. But in practice, there's a bunch of people that I know that have large radar systems. So they go looking for science questions that they can answer with large radar systems.
Yep.
In our case, we're a community that has lots of radio operators. So we want to, and we have some idea of how we're able to operate. So what we want to do is we want to find good science questions that can be answered with the techniques that we have. Yeah, Greg?
Yeah, David brings up a good point. I'm assuming there's a lot more 10-meter antennas out there than 6, so I think that would be an important variable.
I think it'd be really interesting to get some sort of a literature review of what we know about meteor scatter so far. And that literature review can be from both the professional literature and from the amateur literature. Because if no one has ever looked at or written about meteor scatter at all ever before, then kind of the field is wide open. You know, we could ask really basic questions of, you know, how fast does a meteor scatter occur? How large of a region does it take place? But if a lot of that stuff is known already, we might want to try and target a more refined question.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because just in conversations with Frank W3LPL and also I guess with Ward, okay, Ward Silver, in terms of some of his comments, is that they were more anecdotal than they were science-based. Okay, so anything that we can do that we nail down that really has a literature or more scientific aspect, I think really helps us in framing this.
The meteor
So
scan
I
is
think-
used as a basis for the SNOTEL network to be able to communicate their snow measurements.
So I think that's the next step. I think we have a really good sense here of, okay, we know that we have these different modes we can use. We know we have these different frequencies. The interest is there. It's technically feasible. We have a community that will be able to do this. We have methods for, you know, logging for doing the observations, either by people sending in logs or, you know, turning on their WSJTX to submit to a PSK reporter. But I think the next thing to do is that literature review, and you know, look through the QST archives, look through the CQ archives if we can get them, look through scholar.google.com and see what's out there. And I think if we do a nice review of the literature that's out there, one thing that will pop out of that is like, okay, people have done all of this, but you know, they haven't done this, or based on what they've done, this question shows up and we think we have a way of answering it.
By the way, there is a mode we haven't, I don't think we've mentioned, that's high-speed CW.
Sure.
Getting back to the
It's another option. I have quite a collection of literature on this, so I'll put together some links and send it to Nathaniel.
That would be great. Actually, I'm
Yeah,
not sure that I don't think I want to be the person I have a lot of literature reviews I have to do right now. So I don't know if this goes to Mackenzie or if this goes to Gareth or Gary or
Right.
I'll send it to Mackenzie. That's easy, and then she can send it out to whoever. I'm sure others of you will have some links as well.
Yeah.
I still have a TID automatic detection paper I have to get written and out the door.
Gary, I think there's some other slides up there that kind of explained in more detail what I wanted to do. Because originally I was thinking maybe not. So the whole thing was I was trying to see if we could do it on HF, on FT4, FT8. And I know people said that might be difficult, and Whisper would probably be, I guess, more impossible. And I was talking to Ed about this before we started, but I was trying to see if we could use MSK 144 as a control group when, you know, comparing that VHF, UHF to HF contacts for meteor scatter. But it sounds like people are saying that would be a little more difficult and we should just go to MSK for both. Because it has been done back in 2008. But they used SSB and CW so that's how we know that HF meteor scatter is possible.
Mhm.
It's just rare. And now we have FT4 and FT8, which is why I was thinking maybe we could use that instead. So, is everybody absolutely like certain it would be difficult for FT8 and FT4? Like, is it even worth a
I
shot
mean,
to try that?
Meteor
that could be a
scatter,
research.
the opening is a few seconds. So it's too
Okay.
fast
Just the
for.
exchange, right? Yeah.
So FT8 and FT4 would be.
Yeah, if you talk really fast, you can do it sideband.
Yeah.
But I mean, that could also potentially be a research question in and of itself. Can any of these get through?
We've decided MSK for both. For
Yeah,
HF.
I think that's that we're technically in a corner as far as the modes.
Okay.
And I think, and to me, that makes, maybe it's good or bad. It makes the data more homogeneous. If we have a few hundred people all using MSK 144, that takes a variable out of our analysis, I suppose.
I agree with that. I think it'll help keep it much more focused and much more tractable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really nice that the way modern amateur radios are and amateur radio systems, it should be relatively easy it should be very accessible. So even though it's going to be a new mode, it's not like people have to go out and buy new hardware.
Right.
Right.
Right, because most people, because they do run FT4 and 8, all they have to do is change the mode and a few other things, and away they go. So
Yep. And that can make it exciting for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
it's new.
So,
Mhm.
I mean, I'll publish this as a wrap up to our meeting, but there are some interesting websites where, we can go with people's experience and that sort of thing, so we can understand how this is working. But there's an audio file here. I probably wouldn't succeed in playing it, but it is kind of interesting. You just hear like a little blip. I mean, these things are fractions of a second long, the signals as they come through, and you can still make your contact. It's pretty interesting. So I'll send this out as part of the wrap up.
I know K5ND.
So
Can I talk a little bit about timing?
sure.
Yeah, I mean, August looks like it's a long way away, but actually I'm sort of thinking about what we can do either as an announcement at the workshop, but also something that's more formal that we sort of tie with sort of the World Amateur Radio Day, Ham Radio Open House in April. That get us a little bit more publicity around it. So I don't know what the lead time is to be able to nail down the literature and everything else. But if we had a what that we can talk about in March, I think that would be great.
As a backup to that too, we've also got Dayton. We've got a HamSCI forum
Yeah,
there. We've
exactly
got plenty
right.
of
Yep.
opportunities to speak to a lot of people.
Yep, and we could have something prepared for that as well too.
At the HamSCI workshop, there can even be we can do a range of things. One is we can just do a 1 or 2 slide part of a presentation. The way we came up with a draft of the HamSCI workshop agenda earlier this week. It's not public and not confirmed or anything like that. I think what we did was, I think Gareth and I are bookends on Friday. So I think I'm talking first and Gareth is talking last. And, one of us, possibly Gareth, could put in a slide or two at the end that says, we, as part of this new project, new grant, we're planning a, meteor scatter competition. And we know that the Perseids are in August, July and August, and the Geminids are in December. And so we're going to be getting ready for that. And, we could have Mackenzie, you can take what you've put so far and you could put together a poster that just says ideas for the Meteor Scatter QSO party. And I'm doing this with a few posters. It's a discussion poster. So you're not saying this is what it's going to be. You're going to say, these are the ideas we have. And then we try to finalize all of those ideas in time for Hamvention. So we basically use the HamSCI workshop to start the discussion and kind of get it on people's calendars. We say, the final the final rules will be available by Hamvention.
I think that sounds good. How would I go about making a poster for invention?
For the HamSCI workshop, it's really easy. I can just send you a template, a PowerPoint template. You just fill out this giant PowerPoint template, and then you send it back to me. We'll print it, bring it, and hang it up.
Oh, okay.
It's 3 by
I'll
4
send
feet.
you-
It's big.
Yeah, 4 foot wide and 3 foot tall. I can send you that link right now.
Yes,
I'll
please.
send you a couple
I'll try to
links
get it done.
Yeah, I'll send you a couple links to some that are on the HamSCIence site now, so you can see what others would look like.
Yeah.
But it's a
I'll
really
probably
great way to get your ideas and your thoughts down in an organized manner, and then you have something that looks really spiffy to hand out to people.
Would I be able to send that back to both of you so you can double check it and make sure it looks
Oh yeah, we'll all iterate on it.
okay?
Absolutely. And in fact, what you can do is you can work on it, and next week or the week after, you can show us your progress, and we can all show it on the screen here. We can all comment on it and go from there.
Getting back to your literature search you were talking about earlier, there have been various commercial companies that have, used meteor scatter for communication in places like, well, here in British Columbia. It's not done so much anymore, but the thing is that you very often those sort of things come out of somebody's doctoral thesis or something like that, and they form a small company. So I'm just wondering how much there is in the academic literature, if there are actually companies having been formed, so how much how much this technology has actually been studied, and results given from it that have nothing to do with amateur radio, have to do with actually making money from communicating between one site and another.
All right, good point. Good thoughts, Nick. I see Gary posted a note in there too. He's just been poking around the FCC rules. Technicians are legal from 28 to 28.3, as somebody else thought. So we're good.
That's a bigger pool. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. I know I see in the enforcement actions, technicians get caught on a lot of other bands doing FT8 where they don't belong, but 10 meters is good for them. So. All right. Any other comments or questions for Mackenzie or anybody else on the topic? It sounds like we've got a plan forward anyhow.
Yep, it sounds good. It's coming together, which is great. So thanks to Mackenzie for putting this together. So
All right. One other thing, when Nick was talking, he reminded me of a slightly different subject. Nick put together a whole lot of work gathering up all the data from the medium wave event. And I'll show you our website real quick. There's now a news item on the website about the data from some of the data anyhow from the festivals of eclipse ionospheric science being made available. There's a couple entries on Zenodo from the SEQP and the Gladstone event, but Nick put in a tremendous amount of work getting the medium wave recording stuff going. So you can read about it on our website off the front, and you can take a trip over to Zenodo. Let's see if it loads. Yep. And there's Nick's explanation of all the data, and there's a lot of information here, beautiful maps, and also a lot of technical information about how the recordings were made and so on and so forth. So when somebody wants to pick this up and do some research with it in the future, I'd say they are very, very well positioned. Yeah, there's the link to the individual records. And I think you said there was what, 10 terabytes there, Nick?
Yeah, there's 10 terabytes of data total, but the thing is that Zenodo, uploading to Zenodo is incredibly slow. So all I've been able to upload, before I die is, just the actual period of the eclipse. So it's the participants in the 2023 eclipse who actually got effects from the eclipse, and their data is online, and that's like about 90 minutes, I guess, during the course of the eclipse. Everything else, HamSCI has the records. If people want it, they'll have to get in touch with us and we can give them, like whatever they want. It's all documented as to the time period that was recorded, because some of these people recorded for 3 days. So there's a lot of reference data there, as well as actual eclipse period data. The other thing, when you're talking about terabytes and so forth, is that I mentioned to Gary and Nathaniel that when the index page was put up, within half a day, there was something like, is it 500? It's about 500 gigabytes of data was, like basically downloaded. Somebody's interested in this stuff.
Great.
I'd love to know who it is. And that, say the index itself is now pushing 1 terabyte of downloads, and there's about 5 terabytes of downloads on all the other data. I haven't added them up recently, but somebody's downloading this stuff. And the only announcement, up to what you said, like what you just put up in HamSCI a couple of days ago, has been the Zenodo announcement. So I'm really curious. And Nathaniel pointed out that we really have to, actually put in with this data just in case it takes off, is that, hey, it would be really nice if you actually credited where this data came from, if anybody is actually going to create any papers or anything from this. So yeah, I'm sort of interested as to what's going on there. Anyway, back to you, Gary.
But Nick, I noticed it's just the October data. Is the April data going to be available?
That's the plan. This one was a template. It takes serious amounts of time to get Zenodo up. And also, just simply, like that, the structure of this thing took a fair bit of time to just figure out how it was going to be done. Now I can do the same thing with the 2024 data, which is on its way now. And I'm planning to split that up because there's actually a transatlantic component to that, which is quite different really from what was happening in the continental United States and Canada. So it's coming. It will probably take a few months, just again, simply the time that's going to take to upload to Zenodo.
We have a student who's going to be analyzing our April data,
Mhm.
and we would very much like to have your
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Probably not doing it until the next term, so we have a little bit of time, but
Okay. That's good, but essentially, if they want the data, we can figure out ways of getting it to them. Because I have the data, Nathaniel has the data, I think Christina has the data.
is it a matter of sending you a sufficiently large hard drive?
Pretty much, I guess. Like we did have a very high speed storage area that the HamSCI member volunteered for us, but he's had to close that down. But that was genius. You could just sit there and go click and just boom, you get this incredible amount of data coming across if you had a good sized pipe connected to your internet. But yeah, if there's a specific portion that you're interested in from a specific site, then yeah, we can get it to you. But hopefully by the time the student is interested in the data, we'll actually have it up in Zenodo. I'd love to know if there's a way of getting stuff up on Zenodo quickly, then this could be done really rapidly. But I don't know anything about it short of going to Switzerland and plugging something into something in a wall and uploading a whole pile of stuff from a hard drive. Anyway, back.
Yeah, it'll be probably early April.
Nick, you
Okay.
said,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry. You said something about transatlantic. You said something about transatlantic. What is it? you have something in the data for transatlantic. Can you say a bit more about it? Transatlantic thing?
There were people recording on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Europe or in the ocean?
I think he's talking about Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, I know in October, there was one station in Portugal, in the October data that's up there now. But there may have been more in 2024. Okay, any other comments, questions on Nick's medium wave data that's up there with such care? Nice. Okay, one other thing, just a quick promotion, just because it showed up in QST, and I know Ed can talk about it for a couple minutes too. Let's see, QST magazine had a nice promotion for this, whoops, ham radio open house business this month. Nice picture of W1HQ, their station there in Newington. But the nice thing was, there was good mention of both HamSCI and SciStarter, the citizen science organization within the article. So we got a lot of good press there. And then there's this guy in a purple polo shirt
Who is that?
demonstrating W3USR too. Got Nathaniel's picture in there too. And more stuff about our collaboration. Is there anything you want to talk about for Ward? Ed?
Yeah, I don't know how many people know about it because obviously QST is I guess just out, and the league has done some promotion, particularly coming out of HamCation last weekend. This is the 100th anniversary of the IARU, and I do double duty because I'm on the ARLPR committee, and one of the things that we talked about is that World Amateur Radio Day is always a big event on April 18th, not to be confused with World Radio Day, which I think is today. But what we were looking to do was to get a little bit larger exposure for World Amateur Radio Day, which is not as popular in the United States. It is in Canada, and certainly in Europe and in Latin America. And because the 18th falls around Easter week and also Passover this year, is that the league grabbed onto it. Okay, and I think the contesters, I think Radio Sport is doing something around it. But we're also going to be doing something that's called Ham Radio Open House, which is just sort of, I guess, an opening to be able to get the larger public involved in what amateur radio is and does, okay, and also get clubs involved, okay, in terms of really looking and talking about sort of where amateur radio is going. So really, not only on the 18th, if you can get on the air and be part of the World Amateur Radio Day event, but if a club can do something during the month of April, that would be something that the league is very, very interested in. And I've sort of tabbed it as 50 clubs in 50 states. And obviously, if you're in a cold weather climb, April can still be a little risky. So if you're not necessarily doing a public event, if you can do something around a club station, which I think is outlined in the article. But certainly, if you're in a warmer climate, if you can do a public event, much like you would do for field day, or for winter field day, those types of things, I think it gives us a good opportunity to expose people, greater amount of people to amateur radio. And certainly HamSCI has been a part of that. And I think we've certainly looked at what we're going to be doing here with the Meteor scatter experiment as something that sort of just creates not only an announcement that perhaps goes out in April, but also just sort of I guess a random act of solid science, in terms of some of the things that we're doing. Our partnership with SciStarter is a citizen science group. Perhaps Nathaniel can talk about his interaction with them. But nevertheless, they're lending good offices to help us promote this event, as well as the league and obviously as well as what the committee's going to be doing in terms of their outreach as well. So Gary, back to you. That's a little bit about what World Amateur Radio Day and Ham Radio on the Air is about.
No, that's great, Ed. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, we're planning something here at Dartmouth.
That's great, David. Okay, yeah, and again, 50. New Hampshire's on the board, which is great. So thank you.
Yep.
I think one of the interesting things is that Sierra and some of the ideas that popped out of the committee is that if clubs do bring the general public in, we want to show them something a little different. Anybody can, transmitting Morse code or talking to a microphone and doing sideband is fine. but she would rather do something really interesting with the digital modes. Teach people, what it means to take an SWR measurement, change the length of the antenna, watch the SWR measurement move.
Yep.
Something that's more of an act of science, and
Contemporary
educating
science, that
them.
type of thing, I think is probably
So-
the, so.
That's kind of thought, anyhow.
Mhm.
So good. All right. That about does it for my agenda. Is there anything anybody else wants to bring up for this week yet? Oh, good. All right.
I'll
I
just mention that, there's been some stuff about the magnetotail activity and VLF and other things. So that looks like something very interesting. The spacecraft that we have a proposal into NASA relates directly to that, looking for electron precipitation coming from the Earth's magnetic tail. So that's another piece of research we may be able to get HamSCI connected to.
more the merrier. All right. If that's it, we'll wrap up a little bit early. For next week, don't have the program finalized yet. I'm working with a gentleman to talk about VLF stuff, but the good thing is he's got an interesting perspective on it, but the tough thing is he's also in Australia. So if I can twist his arm, he's got to get up awfully early in the morning to speak with us. So we'll see if I'm successful or not. But that's it. So. Nathaniel, if you got a minute before we pull out, I got a question from K3LR about the PSWS. So I just want to raise that with you, make sure real quick. So
Absolutely. I actually wanted to send him an email about it. So
Okay.
that's great.
maybe I should just forward it to you then. So, but anyhow, we'll talk for a second. So is that, if nobody else has anything else, thanks everyone for participating and for your input. We got a lot of good input. We got a lot of good motion, forward motion on this project today. So. All right, I guess we'll call the meeting to a close. How's that?
Good meeting.
Bang the gavel.
73s, everybody.
Yep.
73.
73